my amazing students. Today you are going to improve all areas of your English, and you're going to do that in a fun and engaging way. We're going to read an interesting article together. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's get started. First, I'll read the headline. No rope, no gear, 3,000 feet of granite. One man's amazing feat up El Capitan. El Capitan is the name of this mountain that you can see in the picture. And this man right here in the picture is climbing this mountain with no rope and no gear. That is crazy, right? Gear, if you didn't know, this is another word for equipment, most commonly used in the athletic and sports world. Using this, you could say, I love soccer, which in North America, that's what we call football because we have American football, so it's a little confusing. I love soccer because you don't need a lot of gear. Now, American football, which we just call football in North America, you actually do need a lot of gear, but soccer, which if you're outside of North America, you call football, you don't need a lot of gear. So this is how it's commonly used in the sports world. Now to repeat, look at this image again. This man is climbing this 3,000 foot mountain without gear, without a rope. What is an adjective that comes to your mind when you look at this picture? And you know that he does not have a rope or any gear. What adjective comes to your mind? Put it in the comments right now. As for me, all negative adjectives came to my mind. Crazy, insane, terrifying, petrifying, which means extremely terrifying. So it sounds a little bit stronger. Petrifying, that's petrifying. Now, perhaps there are some positive emotions that came to your mind. Exhilarating, exciting, thrilling, riveting. So those could be some positive emotions. Now, don't worry about taking any of these notes because I summarize everything in a free lesson PDF. You can look for the link in the description. Now let's continue and learn about this crazy, insane, exhilarating story. El Capitan is the legendary granite. Now it was in the headline, but notice my pronunciation, granite, granite, granite. And granite is just the type of stone, the type of rock in North America. It's commonly used for kitchen counters, can be made out of granite. El Capitan is the legendary granite monolith. Monolith means very large or very powerful. In this sense, of course, it's very large. We commonly use this to describe companies or organizations. For example, Google is a monolith. They're very large, and also because they're very large, they're very powerful. So a monolith, it's a something, a noun. So El Capitan is a legendary granite monolith that towers 3,000 feet, 900 meters from its base. The base is the bottom to its summit. The summit is the top where this man is trying to go without a rope, which is absolutely crazy or exhilarating, whatever your preference is, overlooking Yosemite National Park. So this is where English spelling and pronunciation, you can't learn the pronunciation from the spelling, so just ignore the word, listen to my voice. Yosemite, Yosemite, Yosemite. Yosemite National Park is a very famous national park in North America. I have not seen it myself, but I would love to one day. Have you seen it? If you have, let me know in the comments. I wrote how I think it sounds phonetically. Feel free to write it down how you think it sounds phonetically as well. Just remember Yosemite, Yosemite. Let's continue. Last year, Alex Honnold chalked up his hands and set off up its vertical face in a bid to realize his dream. So here he chalked up his hands. This is literal. He literally put chalk on his hands because that is necessary for mountain climbing. Now, the type of mountain climbing he is doing here is called free soloing, and that's when you climb without ropes and without gear. Now, I have never been mountain climbing in my life. In fact, I am afraid of heights, so it is not an activity I would want to do. But I learned this because I watched the documentary called Free Solo. So this is the name of the documentary, which tells the story of this man's feat. And this documentary came out in 2018 and it won an Academy Award. It's a really amazing documentary, so I highly recommend you watch it. It is exhilarating. It's also terrifying watching this documentary at the same time. All right, let's continue on. So here, he chalked up his hand. So that is literal. And I stressed that this is literal because there is a figurative meaning with the phrasal verb to chalk something up to something. This is to say that something causes something. For example, Google chalked up, now in this case, the something is the layoffs. So they chalked up the layoffs to something else, to the poor economy, which I spelled incorrectly, economy. Google chalked up the layoffs to the poor economy. So this is saying the poor economy caused the layoffs, but this is in Google's opinion. So generally when you want to share your opinion that something causes something, you can use this expression. So Alex Honnold chalked up his hands and set off up its vertical face. So we have another phrasal verb here, to set off. When you set off, you start a trip or journey. In this case, the phrasal verb up does not belong to the expression. It's the preposition you needed to show the relationship to the distance. So he's literally going up the mountain. But I could say tomorrow we're setting off. So here, our phrasal verb to set off, it's in the present continuous because it's a planned action. Tomorrow we're setting off for Florida. So I'm using for because that's our destination, for Florida. Setting off up, it's vertical face. So this is the direction of vertical. So horizontal, vertical. It's vertical face in a bid to realize his dream. In this case, a bid to realize, think of it as an attempt, in an attempt to realize his dream. And be the first human to reach the top. Remember, there was another word for top when it comes to a mountain, to reach the summit. So you can say the top, the summit, without using any ropes or safety equipment. And there was another word for equipment when it comes to the sports world, which was gear. Are you enjoying this lesson? If you are, then I want to tell you about the Finally Fluent Academy. This is my premium training program where we study native English speakers from TV, the movies, YouTube, and the news so you can improve your listening skills of fast English, expand your vocabulary with natural expressions, and learn advanced grammar easily. Plus, you'll have me as your personal coach. You can look in the description for the link to learn more, or you can go to my website and click on Finally Fluent Academy. Now let's continue with our lesson. All that separated him from a lonely death was his climbing skill and his ability to keep calm in situations that would leave most of us gibbering wrecks. You've probably never seen gibbering wreck before, I'm assuming. So notice the pronunciation, j. It's a J sound, gibbering, gibbering. When you gibber, this is a verb, is when you speak very quickly and nobody can understand you. So what you're saying is incomprehensible, either because of the speed or because You're not connecting your ideas very well. And this is because you are terrified. You're petrified. Remember that? Very, very scared, afraid. You're petrified. Usually something traumatic happened. So we'll have to take her statement after she stops gibbering. So maybe someone is talking to the police. They were in an accident or some terrible event happened and they're trying to explain what happened, but they're gibbering. They're speaking in an incomprehensible way. So that you can imagine if you were on the top of that mountain without a rope, you would be a gibbering wreck. I certainly would be. Now, a wreck is someone who is in bad physical or emotional condition. To describe someone as a wreck is quite common. Gibbering is not very commonly used, but it's very common to say, for example, she was a wreck after she lost her job. So at any point in your life where you're having a difficult time, either physically or emotionally, you can use this. Oh, I was a wreck after this happened, or I'm a wreck because of this. So a wreck, to be a wreck. Let's continue. He followed a route called Freerider, first climbed 20 years earlier by brothers Alex and Thomas Huber. In the eyes of the climbing community, climbing it without ropes was impossible, an instant death sentence. Not that it deterred Honnold. Okay, so let's look at it here. When something deters someone, it causes that person to not want to do the activity. So the fact that everybody said it was impossible, that didn't deter Honnold. So we use this to deter someone. We use it in both the positive and the negative. Oh, that would deter my students. That wouldn't deter my students. Let's look at this example. Making mistakes deters some students from speaking in public, from using their English in public. So this is the something, making mistakes, and it's conjugated as it. That's why we have the S here. It deters some students. This deters some students, but it doesn't deter others. So that's how you can use it. And we do commonly use it both in the positive and the negative. Now, if it's positive, it does deter you. It means you don't do the activity. Whereas if it's in the negative, it doesn't deter you. It means you do the activity. Not that it deterred Honnold with his spooky level of self-confidence. Perhaps you know what spooky means. It means scary or strange. You might use it to describe a movie. Oh, that movie was spooky. Or maybe there's a dark street and you don't want to walk on that street. You say, oh, that street's too spooky, scary, strange. Now notice here, they're saying a spooky level of self-confidence, a strange, scary level, because the self-confidence you would need to climb a 3,000-foot mountain without ropes is perhaps a little or a lot spooky. As I said, a little crazy, perhaps. And famously calm demeanor. Let's look at the pronunciation here. Demeanor. So again, I wrote it out phonetically, at least how it sounds to me. Demeanor. One's demeanor is one's way of behaving. So I could say, from his demeanor, I had no idea he was upset. So later I find out he was upset, but he was behaving in a very calm, normal way. So from his demeanor, from his way of behaving, way of acting, I had no idea he was upset. So this climber has a famously calm demeanor. I imagine you would need to have a calm demeanor to attempt something like this man did. When free soloing, remember free soloing? To free solo, that's the activity which not many people do for obvious reasons, the activity of climbing a mountain without ropes and without gear, without equipment. When free soloing hard routes. And this is an activity to free solo. So that's why the soloing is in the ing form, because when is a preposition. So when doing the activity, when running, when swimming, when free soloing. So this is a verb, to free solo. Let's continue. It's not like he could play it safe either. The climbing on Freerider is so hard that some of it requires very committing, dynamic moves, such as the karate kick boulder problem. Okay, when you play something safe, it means you approach an activity or you approach a task in a very cautious way, which when you're mountain climbing seems like a very smart thing to do. So in this context, it makes sense that playing it safe is a positive thing, being cautious, being careful. But in other contexts, not necessarily a positive thing. You shouldn't go your entire life or career playing it safe. At some point, you need to take some risks. So a friend or coworker might say to you, don't play it safe. You should ask for a raise. So you need to take a risk. You need to go outside of your comfort zone and ask for a raise. So we also use this as the negative. Don't play it safe. So it depends on the context. The climbing on Freerider is so hard that some of it requires very committing, dynamic moves, such as the karate kick boulder problem. If the high kick across the void misses, or your foot slips as it lands, then you're falling through space. And what happens if you fall through space without a rope? You die. So this is a way of saying you die without just saying it bluntly, because that can sound just very blunt. You die. So they're trying to say it in a more evasive, maybe perhaps poetic way. But the ultimate result is you die. Now, this one you have to kind of use your imagination. So imagine someone doing a karate kick. You can't see my feet, so I'll just do it with my hands, a karate kick. But he's doing this while climbing a mountain. So you have to do this while you're climbing a mountain without a rope. You have to kick out your leg and then I guess secure it to another part of the rock. Now, if your foot slips, so when something slips, it means the grip. So right now this is grip. I have a good grip. But then the lack of a grip is when something starts slipping and then eventually it falls. So it starts slipping and then it falls, which is obviously what we don't want to happen in this situation. So again, when I think of doing a karate kick while climbing a mountain at 2,000 feet in the air without a rope, crazy, insane. I guess some people think it's exhilarating, riveting, and thrilling. So again, those positive and negative adjectives. As he tells us, free soloing, remember this is the activity of climbing a mountain without ropes, without gear, equipment. Free soloing for Honnold. And remember, this is in the gerund because they're talking about it as an activity. You could say, as he tells us, swimming, and then you would talk about it as the activity. Running, speaking, any activity there. So that's why it's in the ing. Free soloing for Honnold is an expression of mastery, both of climbing and himself, given his skill and sheer audacity. Ooh, I like this. Sheer audacity. Audacity. This is confidence or courage, but that most find shocking or rude. So generally it's used as a negative. This is a very common statement. She had the audacity to tell me my cooking is terrible. But if you look at it on the other hand, let's say my cooking really is terrible and I serve everyone food that just does not taste good. And one person has the courage, the confidence to say, Jennifer, your cooking is terrible. So although that seems rude or impolite, it's really, on the other hand, perhaps courageous that she did that. But we generally say this as a negative thing. She had the audacity to tell me my cooking is terrible. So someone has or had in the past the audacity to usually say something or tell someone something or do something. She had the audacity to quit after I gave her a raise, something like that, but very common expressions. So do some examples to get comfortable with it. Now in this case, given his skill and sheer audacity, sheer doesn't really contain any meaning, is just there to emphasize audacity, to make it sound greater or more important. So it's just there to emphasize audacity. It wouldn't be there on its own. It only emphasizes. Given his skill and sheer audacity, you might be forgiven for thinking that Honnold is a climbing automaton without fear or nerves. An automaton, this is a robot, a machine. So a machine could climb the mountain because it doesn't have emotions, it doesn't have feelings. But how could a human climb a 3,000-foot mountain without ropes? Who does that? So that's why you might be forgiven for thinking that he's an automaton, for describing him as more like a machine, someone who lacks the fear emotion or the other emotions that would prevent someone from doing such a crazy, exhilarating feat. Now notice this sentence structure here. You might be. Might is a modal verb. And then we always use the base verb. You might be. So not might to be, and you don't conjugate it. So it's just the base verb. Might be. Modal plus base verb. Let's continue. But as he admitted to us, he gets scared on climbs. Now here, when you get scared, that's another way of saying become scared. So it's that transition from not scared to scared. We use get, but then when you are that emotion, you use the verb to be. I am scared now. I always get scared when I climb mountains without ropes and gear, which makes sense. I would be scared in that situation. We'd never recommend. What is this? What does this stand for? What word does this represent? We never recommend. What is this? Do you know? We would never recommend. So don't miss this. This is would. Native speakers will always use this as the contraction in spoken English, so it can be hard to hear it, but the sentence structure tells you that it's required. We'd never recommend free soloing. Now here again, we have the activity in the gerund form because recommend is a gerund verb, so you need the gerund verb following it. In a sentence, you could say, I recommend practicing English for 20 minutes a day. You could also say, I would recommend. So in this case, it's just subject, verb recommend. In this case, it's using would. So the conditional, I would recommend practicing English for 20 minutes a day. These are very similar in meaning, but the second one, to me, it sounds softer, more of a gentler recommendation. I don't know if it's the exact advice for you, or maybe you're not specifically asking me, so I'm delivering it in a softer way. But this one sounds a little more authoritative. I recommend. I'd recommend. This one sounds softer. We would never recommend free soloing to anyone. You'll die. So here they didn't say it in a poetic way. They were very blunt, direct. So notice here I said blunt. To be blunt is when you deliver information very simple, clear, concise, without trying to make it sound softer than it is. You'll die. your cooking is terrible. That is being very blunt, very direct. But there are valuable psychological lessons to be learned from how Honnold calmed his mind to focus on his ultimate dream without paying the final price. So again, now they're being a little more poetic. What would be the final price that he paid? Well, he attempted to climb this mountain. He did the karate kick. His foot slipped and he fell to his death. He died. That would be paying the final price, because obviously when you have no gear, no ropes, if you make one mistake, you die. So that's the final price, and that is being very blunt and direct. So that's the end of the article. Remember that this is from a movie, documentary movie called Free Solo. Although I think this is absolutely crazy, in my opinion, the documentary is excellent and I do recommend it. Now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation. No rope, no gear, 3,000 feet of granite. One man's amazing feat up El Capitan. El Capitan is the legendary granite monolith that towers 3,000 feet, 900 meters, from its base to its summit overlooking Yosemite National Park. Last year, Alex Honnold chalked up his hands and set off up its vertical face in a bid to realize his dream and be the first human to reach the top without using any ropes or safety equipment. All that separated him from a lonely death was his climbing skill and his ability to keep calm in situations that would leave most of us gibbering wrecks. He followed a route called Freerider, first climbed 20 years earlier by brothers Alex and Thomas Huber. In the eyes of the climbing community, climbing it without ropes was impossible, an instant death sentence. Not that it deterred Honnold, with his spooky level of self-confidence and famously calm demeanor when free soloing hard routes. It's not like he could play it safe. Either the climbing on Freerider is so hard that some of it requires very committing dynamic moves, such as the karate kick boulder problem. If the high kick across the void misses or your foot slips as it lands, then you're falling through space. As he tells us, free soloing for Honnold is an expression of mastery, both of climbing and himself. Given his skill and sheer audacity, you might be forgiven for thinking that Honnold is a climbing automaton without fear or nerves. But as he admitted to us, he gets scared on climbs. We'd never recommend free soloing to anyone. You'll die. But there are valuable psychological lessons to be learned from how Honnold calmed his mind to focus on his ultimate dream without paying the final price. Did you like this lesson? Do you want me to make more lessons just like this? If you do, then put more in the comments below. And of course, make sure you like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And you can improve your English listening skills with this lesson. Make sure you watch it right now.